Welcome to All the F Words,
a podcast where two writer friends, nearly 30 years apart, explore everything we give an F about. I'm Gabi Moskowitz.
And I'm Joanne Green. On each episode of All the F Words, we'll focus on a different theme, starting with the letter F. Things like fighting, firsts, friendship, and family.
We'll share stories from our lives and our distinct generational perspectives and look to the experts for insights and ideas.
Today we're going to talk about fatigue, and we will address COVID fatigue, which is definitely a thing.
Oh, yeah.
But let's just start out by separating tiredness from fatigue. So how would you define the difference? I mean, I have the actual definition here, so this isn't a quiz per se, but I'm just curious to know how you would differentiate the two.
I think tiredness, I generally think of as something that I can treat with, I can treat pretty simply, a little bit of rest. I'm not much of a napper, but if I were napping, might help tiredness, or just going to bed early one night might cure some tiredness for me the next day, or even a cup of coffee. However, fatigue, I think I would imagine as kind of a deeper, more chronic, ongoing thing. Did I get it right?
And you would be right. So medically speaking, tiredness happens to everyone. It's expected after certain activities, right? You run 10 miles, you're going to be tired. Or at the end of the day. And all you need really, like you say, is some rest or a good night's sleep. Fatigue's something else entirely. It is a daily lack of energy. And sleep doesn't seem to make any difference. So it can be acute, lasting weeks or up to a month, or it can be chronic, lasting from 1 to 6 months to even longer. So have you experienced fatigue, do you think?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Well, I've had experience with depression, which can on and off throughout my life, which definitely I know can involve fatigue. But more specifically, I've been pregnant twice. So fatigue, and I think the most fatigued I've ever been was actually not either time with a newborn, but when I was pregnant with my second child and I had also a toddler already. Pregnant and so sick the first trimester. I think that is the most physically and emotionally and mentally fatigued I have ever been in my entire life. Was like the first trimester of my second pregnancy. Absolutely.
And you just feel so vulnerable and weak, right? Like that you just cannot pull it together to act appropriately or just take care of business. It's so horrible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about you? Have you experienced?
Well, it's so funny because yes, actually, the beauty of living all these years, Gabi, is that I've experienced most everything. No, not most everything, but a lot. The first thing I want to say, though, is that I never used to get tired, or I didn't know it when I was tired. My settings were on and off. So an enormous amount of energy all day long, can't stop, going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And then I would hit the wall like a toddler, and I would get cranky and either just collapse, like fall asleep in the middle of a television show, which I still do, or a conversation even, or just kind of get cranky and realize, why am I getting cranky? Oh, it's because I'm tired. But I didn't feel tired. So
you would make it to the end of the day?
Mm-hmm. I'd make it to the end of the day, and then I would start to fall apart in one way or another. Now, as I've gotten older, I have now come to understand what it feels like as my body is getting tired. So now I feel it and I can respond to it. And I have to say, I actually love naps. I started taking naps when I was recovering from different things over the years, and naps have become kind of a favorite thing. I have to admit, during the power failure yesterday, I think I might have taken, I don't know if I want to admit this, but 3 or 4 naps during the day.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
It was pretty indulgent. And,
that's amazing.
It would happen like I was reading, and then I would just kind of realize that, I wasn't reading. So I was probably like dozing off, or I was in some half and half zone. But fatigue is something entirely different. Like you, I have felt it with depression, which I have experienced a couple of times during my life. I've also experienced it with grief, and it's been really surprising. I did a little research on this. The other times I've experienced it is after surgery or after a broken bone. And I really want to emphasize this to people because, we all break bones at one time or another or have to have surgery, even minor surgery. And nobody tells you this piece that you should expect to be fatigued. Nobody tells you this about grief either. And it is 100% a possible, I don't know, side effect, would you call it? Like a side effect of all of those things. And it really requires you to pay attention because if you don't, it'll come out in some other way and like a worse symptom, like getting you sick or something. So I don't know. Like, have you known that it was that fatigue was part of grief and also part of recovery?
Well, I have definitely experienced. I've lost grandparents, and that was very difficult. But I've been fortunate enough at this point in my life to never have someone who I was extremely close to die. And so I haven't yet experienced the kind of ongoing grief that doesn't, associated with death, that doesn't give up or doesn't let up for a long time. What I have been through, though, is a few breakups, and I have definitely had the experience of feeling like exhausted around all of it, and really feeling kind of surprised by that because I didn't think of it as having, it was like I was sad or I was angry. There was one breakup in particular where I was really angry about something that had happened, and I didn't know how to stop feeling angry. And so I would just be angry all day, and then I would be absolutely exhausted. And so
that's really interesting. A breakup is a loss, right?
Yeah.
It's a loss. The same way that a death is a loss. So you're in mourning after you break up, right? Whether you initiated it or the other person initiated it, there has to be a mourning period. So mourning is deeply, deeply exhausting. It takes so much of our energy.
Have you experienced fatigue with grief before?
Oh my gosh, yes. I sadly, grief became my wheelhouse for a while there. I lost my mother, my sister, and my brother all within 4 years. And and my mom and my sister passed away 5 months apart. So I was still very much grieving my mother when my sister died. And so then it was compounded, which, often things are. And like loss tends to bring back other losses so that each successive loss is harder because you're having to grieve all of the losses all over again. I don't know why that is, but I've talked to other people and I'm not unique in experiencing grief and loss that way. But yeah, we're talking about a really debilitating kind of fatigue. You can't get out of bed fatigue. Come home from work and lie down and can't get up to put dinner together kind of fatigue. And so it's really rough. And I don't like feeling vulnerable and weak. I sort of pride myself in feeling like a strong person all the time. So not only would I feel this fatigue, but then I would give myself a hard time for feeling it. So that's not productive at all. Instead, the better thing to do, of course, is to give into it and realize that this is your body's way of healing. And right now you actually need more rest. And so, yeah, I mean, I was reading about the exhaustion, the fatigue that can come from grief. And according to this psychologist who had written an article, Catherine Sanders, she said bereaved people can get so weak that they actually feel like they have the flu. There's nothing, right, there's nothing actually wrong with them. They don't have an infection, but it is it is what the grief is causing to their bodies. Amazing.
That's so interesting.
The other...
Oh, I was just going to say the mind-body connection always blows my mind. The way that there's that a book called The Body Remembers, I think, something like that. And it's about how trauma stays in the body. And it's always amazing to me the way that no matter what we think we're feeling, our body lets us know what's really going on.
100%. What about after surgery? And let's put childbirth in there with surgery, even though it doesn't always involve surgery, but surgery or like even a minor surgical procedure.
Have you
had any of this?
I've had surgery. Really, only had other than when I was really little and had like tubes put in. I've had I had my wisdom teeth taken out. And I remember being absolutely exhausted by that. It was sort of two-pronged. There was, and I had another sort of bigger surgery when I was a little older. And what was interesting to me was that the surgery itself was exhausting, but also ongoing pain is exhausting. There's I think that sort of related to surgery, times when I've been in I don't want to say chronic pain because I think that's like a separate thing, but when I've had ongoing pain, that is fatiguing in its own way. I think because it never goes away, it's both physically exhausting, but also cognitively exhausting because you're always thinking about this discomfort and it becomes hard to focus on anything. And that was really my experience. The couple times I've had surgery was the surgery. After the surgery itself, I was really tired. And it was often coupled with, and definitely this is true with, I had vaginal births for both deliveries, but I think the thing that was most exhausting for me, other than, being in labor for a number of hours beforehand, was there's like tons of adrenaline after giving birth, and then the crash from that adrenaline once everything's settled. I think adrenaline for me is really what came up. What was your experience? You had tons of surgery after your accident.
Yeah, I've had a lot of actually not related to the accident. Ironically, I didn't have to have any surgery for the accident, but after that, separate things. Enormous fatigue. And I would add that it's not just the pain that's fatiguing, it's the pain pills that you take. Right? So if the pain is severe and you're on narcotic pain meds, that knocks you out completely. So, and also chronic pain. So like after the accident, I didn't have any surgery, but I had long-term chronic pain as those bones were healing. And the soft tissue damage was healing. Battling that pain, as you say, long-term pain is absolutely mind-numbingly exhausting and fatiguing. So that was for sure rough. The other thing I want to add is that building new bone, specifically when you break bones, it's a particular kind of fatigue because the amount of energy that it takes to build new bone, that alone, minus not even taking into account the pain, just the process of your body healing and building new bone, that in itself is fatiguing. I went and visited a friend who broke her foot this weekend, and she was saying how exhausted she is. And I said, well, of course you are. But again, nobody tells you these things. There's, for some reason, there are all these like little secrets. I'm sure you know this from, having experienced childbirth twice. Like nobody tells you about certain parts of the process. Now, granted, every part of the process doesn't happen to every person. And I suppose they don't want to scare us that it's going to happen to us. But I remember all these different things that have happened over the years where it's like, why didn't I know this?
Absolutely. In fact, toward the end of my pregnancy with Sasha, my younger daughter, or maybe like halfway through, my